Hola mi gente, welcome back to Latina ADHD, the podcast where cultura and ADHD intersect. I'm your host, Dr. Janice Castro, a licensed psychologist, here to help you feel a little more seen and a little less alone. As always, this podcast is for education and community. It's not a replacement for therapy. This season 5, we've been talking about rebuilding self-trust. In solo episode 1, we explored how self-trust gets disrupted, especially when pushing through becomes the norm. In solo episode 3, we talked about what happens when the body finally says enough. And today, we're shifting the focus and talking about what self-trust looks like before burnout, before the breakdown, before life forces you to slow down. Because most people don't think about self-trust until it feels broken. Self-trust isn't built in a crisis. It's practiced in ordinary moments. Let's start by clearing something up. Self-trust is not being consistent all the time, never struggling, always following through perfectly. It's not motivation, it's not discipline, it's not doing better next time. A lot of people confuse self-trust with perfection. They think, if I were more organized, if I had more willpower, if I stopped messing up, then I could trust myself. But that's not how trust works. Think about any relationship you value. You don't trust someone because they're perfect. You trust them because they're honest, because they repair when something goes wrong, because they show up again. Self-trust works the same way. Let's talk about something very human. Breaking promises to yourself. You say, I'll go to bed earlier. I'll respond to that email. I won't overcommit this week. And then you do the opposite. The question isn't whether you'll ever break a promise to yourself. You will. The real question is, what happens next? For many adults with ADHD, the pattern looks like you break the promise, shame shows up, the inner critic gets loud, and then you either overcorrect or you give up entirely. Here's the reframe. A broken promise is information, not proof that you can't be trusted. Maybe you underestimated your energy or ignored a boundary. Maybe you said yes when you meant no. That's data. And here's the anchor line for today. Self-trust grows when you respond to yourself with honesty and compassion, not punishment. Punishment doesn't build trust. Repair does. If every time you make a mistake, you attack yourself, your nervous system learns something very quickly. It's not safe to be imperfect. And if it's not safe to be imperfect, you won't be honest with yourself. And if you're not honest with yourself, how's your trust gonna grow? Self-trust will not grow. Another way self-trust quietly gets disrupted is big declarations. I'm gonna get it together this year. I'm done procrastinating. I'm gonna change everything. These promises sound powerful, but they usually ignore capacity, energy, context. Self-trust grows through realism. One small promise you can actually keep is more powerful than 10 dramatic vows. That might look like one honest pause before saying yes. One boundary this week. One 5-minute reset before the spiral begins. One moment of telling the truth about how tired you are. Not a personality overhaul, just one aligned choice. Self-trust is built in these micro moments, not in grand speeches to yourself. Here's something that I want to say clearly. Compassion is not optional in this process. It is structural, it is essential. You cannot build trust inside a system that punishes mistakes. Your inner voice might sound like, here we go again. I'm never going to change. I should have known better. Your nervous system doesn't feel safe with that kind of talk, and trust requires safety. Compassion doesn't mean you're lowering your standards or you're trying to give yourself a way out. It means you're creating conditions where follow through is possible. Instead of asking yourself, what's wrong with me? Try saying, that didn't work. What do I want to do instead? If you want a deeper practice around self-compassion, I have season 1 finale. It's called Feeling Broken and Finding Strength. In that episode, it walks through the 3 parts of self-compassion and how to use them when that inner critic gets loud. Now, I'm not giving you no homework. This is support. Self-trust is preventative care. When you practice it in small ways, you notice signals sooner. You adjust earlier. You recover faster. You don't wait until your body collapses. And you don't wait until resentment builds. You don't wait until everything feels overwhelming. Self-trust doesn't eliminate hardship. I wish it did. It just means you don't abandon yourself inside it. You don't override every signal. You don't silence every need. You don't push until something breaks. You check in with yourself earlier. And when you check in with yourself earlier, that changes everything. Sometimes, though, life disrupts every system you put in place. It could be birth. It might be loss, unmet expectations, identity shifts, major transitions. And in those moments, self-trust may need to be rebuilt in a deeper way. In the final episode of season 5, you're going to hear what happens when everything changes. And self-trust has to be rediscovered in the middle of postpartum, misdiagnosis, and exhaustion. And here's what I want to remember before you hear that story. I want you to remember that struggle doesn't erase self-trust. Hard seasons don't send you back to zero. Every small act of honesty, every moment of compassion, and every realistic promise you keep, it all counts. Self-trust isn't a personality trait. It's not something you're born with and that's it. It's a practice. And it is practiced long before the big moments arrive. Thank you for being here. If this episode resonated, share it with somebody who needs a gentler way of thinking about change. Hasta la próxima. Cuídate mucho.